The massive Nilaxian warship materialized above Earth's atmosphere, its crystalline hull refracting sunlight in mesmerizing patterns. Admiral Marcus Wade of the United Earth Defense Force stood in the main control room of Geneva Base, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of holographic displays showing the alien vessel. Another scan confirms no apparent weapon systems, Lieutenant Priya Shah reported, her fingers dancing across the quantum interface. Their hull composition is unlike anything we've encountered, but it appears purely defensive in nature. Wade's 30 years of military experience told him something wasn't right. The Nilaxians had arrived 3 days ago, broadcasting messages of peace and technological exchange. Their ambassador, High Speaker Torin, spoke of uplifting humanity into a grand galactic community. "Run the deep spectrum analysis again," Wade ordered, his eyes fixed on the ship's peculiar crystalline structure. "Focus on any energy fluctuations during their diplomatic transmissions." In her private lab 50 floors below, Dr. Diane Harrison was reaching a troubling conclusion. The Nilaxian technology wasn't just advanced, it was impossible. Their crystalline ships supposedly operated on principles that violated fundamental laws of physics, unless— "Director Wade," she called over the secure channel, "I need you to see something immediately." When Wade arrived, Harrison's lab was a chaos of holographic equations and spectral analyses. "Their technology isn't impossible," she explained, pulling up a 3-dimensional model of the Nilaxian ship. "It's incomplete. These energy signatures, they're masking something much larger." Wade studied the data, his military mind connecting dots that had been nagging at him since first contact. "They're hiding their true capabilities," he said softly. "But why make first contact at all? Why not just attack?" Harrison's next words chilled him to the bone. "Because they're not here to fight us, sir. They're here to study us. Every transmission, every diplomatic exchange. They're probing our defenses, learning our weaknesses. The crystalline hull, it's a giant sensor array." As if confirming their fears, new alerts blazed across the monitors. The Nilaxian ship was powering up previously dormant systems, its beautiful crystalline surface beginning to pulse with ominous energy. "All stations, battle stations," Wade commanded, his voice carrying the weight of humanity's survival. "This isn't first contact, it's first reconnaissance." Around the world, military installations scrambled to high alert. The Nilaxian ship, dropping its peaceful pretense, began deploying smaller crystalline vessels. Each one positioned itself in a precise geometric pattern around Earth. "Sir," Shah's voice was tight with concern, "they're forming some kind of energy grid around the planet. Our satellites are going dark wherever the grid touches them." In her lab, Harrison worked frantically, analyzing the rapidly evolving situation. "The crystalline structure," she muttered. "It's not just for show. They're creating a containment field. They're going to trap us inside our own atmosphere." Wade watched as humanity's worst first contact scenario unfolded before him. The peaceful alien civilization they'd welcomed was revealing itself as something far more sinister. But as he studied the tactical displays, a peculiar pattern caught his attention. "Dr. Harrison," he called, "look at the grid formation. Why leave gaps in these specific locations?" Harrison's eyes widened as she overlaid Earth's major communication arrays onto the alien grid pattern. "They're not gaps," she breathed. "They're weak points. They have to be, to maintain the field's stability. And they align perfectly with our largest radio telescope arrays." For the first time since the crisis began, Wade felt a glimmer of hope. The Nilaxians might have superior technology, but they'd made a crucial mistake. In their arrogance, they'd assumed Earth's primitive communication systems would be harmless. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Dr. Harrison's revelation about Earth's radio telescopes sparked a frantic race against time. In the depths of the Atacama Desert, Dr. Raj Patel stood before the massive array of radio telescopes, their dishes gleaming under the stark Chilean sun. His team had been working nonstop since receiving the encrypted transmission from Geneva Base. The frequency modulation is unlike anything we've seen, Paddle explained to the holographic projection of Admiral Wade. Every time the Nilaxian grid pulses, our older radio equipment picks up what we thought was interference. But it's not interference. It's a pattern. Wade's hologram flickered as another satellite went dark. How long until their containment field is complete? 3 hours, maximum, Lieutenant Shaw interjected, her image appearing alongside Wade's. After that, they'll have total control over Earth's electromagnetic spectrum. But Paddle wasn't listening anymore. His attention was fixed on a curious anomaly in the data streaming across his screens. The Nilaxian grid wasn't just blocking communications, it was absorbing them, processing them, and sending them back change. Dr. Harrison, he called out, knowing she was monitoring the feed. Are you seeing this? The grid, it's not just a weapon. It's a computer, a quantum computer on a planetary scale. In Geneva, Harrison's fingers flew across her console as she confirmed Patel's discovery. The Nilaxians weren't just trying to contain Earth, they were trying to hack it. Every transmission, every radio wave, every electronic signal was being collected and analyzed by their crystalline network. They're not just studying us, Harrison realized. They're trying to decode our entire civilization. But their quantum systems, they're having trouble processing our older analog signals. They're too chaotic, too unpredictable. Wade's military mind quickly grasped the implications. Can we use that? Turn their own grid against them. Better, Harrison replied, her voice tight with excitement. We can overload it. Every radio station, every TV broadcast, every satellite. If we can synchronize them just right, we can create a feedback loop in their quantum network. Around the world, humanity's old communication infrastructure suddenly became its most powerful weapon. Radio stations that had been broadcasting for decades, TV towers that were considered obsolete, even amateur ham radio operators, all became crucial nodes in an improvised defense network. The Nilaxians based their containment field on quantum precision, Paddle explained to military commanders worldwide. But our analog signals, they're messy, imperfect, beautiful in their chaos. Their system can't predict them because they were never meant to be predictable. In orbit, the Nilaxian grid continued to tighten, its crystalline nodes pulsing with increasingly frequent energy bursts. But something was wrong. The quantum harmonics that should have been perfect were showing microscopic fluctuations. High Speaker Torin, watching from the command ship, felt the first stirrings of concern. The primitive Earth technology should have been easily contained, easily controlled. Instead, their grid was experiencing unprecedented instabilities. Sir, Lieutenant Shaw's voice cut through the tension in Geneva base. The Atacama Array is picking up new frequencies from the Nilaxian ships. They're trying to recalibrate their grid. Harrison smiled grimly. They can't. Not fast enough. Our analog signals are too random, too numerous. Every adjustment they make just creates new interference patterns. We're not just fighting their grid, we're teaching it to fight itself. Wade watched as the tactical displays showed the first crystalline node flickering, its perfect structure distorted by the chaos of Earth's combined radio transmissions. The Nilaxians had brought a quantum knife to an analog gunfight, and they were about to learn why humanity's primitive technology had endured for so long. All stations, he commanded, commence Operation Feedback. Let's show our visitors why you should never underestimate old technology. Across the planet, a century of human broadcasting was about to become the most powerful weapon Earth had ever known. Operation Feedback began as a whisper in the electromagnetic spectrum. From the snowy peaks of Nepal to the Australian outback, humanity's radio networks came alive with coordinated purpose. Commander Natasha Rivera, stationed at the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico, orchestrated the first phase of the counterattack. Synchronizing broadcast frequencies now, she announced, her voice steady despite the tension. All stations, begin transmission on my mark. The Nilaxian grid shimmered in orbit, its crystalline nodes still expanding to complete their containment field. But within their quantum network, discordant ripples began to appear. Earth's combined radio transmissions weren't just creating interference. They were composing a symphony of chaos. In Geneva, Dr. Harrison monitored the escalating frequency patterns. "It's working," she reported to Admiral Wade. "The grid's quantum processors can't maintain coherence. Every time they try to adapt, our analog signals create new interference patterns." High Speaker Torin, aboard the Nilaxian command ship, watched with growing alarm as his perfect containment grid began to deteriorate. "Impossible," he muttered, his crystalline features reflecting the emergency lights now flashing throughout his vessel. "Their technology is primitive, uncontrolled." "Exactly." Dr. Patel's voice came through the Earth's emergency broadcast system, addressing not just his human colleagues, but the Nilaxians themselves. "Our technology evolved through trial and error, through chaos and adaptation. Your quantum systems require perfect order, but our analog world has never known such perfection." Lieutenant Shaw's monitoring stations picked up increasing energy fluctuations from the Nilaxian fleet. "They're trying to boost power to the grid," she reported. "But the more energy they pump in, the more our signals have to work with." The battle for Earth's skies had become a war of technological philosophies. The Nilaxians' advanced quantum networks, designed for precision and efficiency, found themselves drowning in a sea of analog chaos. Every radio station, every TV broadcast, every satellite signal became a weapon in humanity's arsenal. Commander Rivera coordinated the global effort from Arecibo, using the massive radio telescope to amplify Earth's transmissions. "Phase 2 initiating," she announced. "All stations, increase power output to maximum. Focus on the grid's resonance points." The effects were immediate and spectacular. The crystalline nodes closest to Earth's major broadcast centers began to vibrate at frequencies their quantum structure couldn't handle. Fractures appeared in their perfect surfaces, spreading like cracks in ice. "We're not just defending ourselves," Dr. Harrison realized, watching the cascade of failures begin. "We're teaching them something about the nature of technology itself. Sometimes the old ways, the imperfect ways, have strengths that perfection can't match." High Speaker Torin's command ship rocked with feedback surges as the containment grid began to collapse. The quantum processors, unable to predict or control the chaos of Earth's analog transmissions, started to fail one by one. Emergency alerts blared throughout the Nilaxian fleet as their supposedly invincible technology proved vulnerable to humanity's electronic cacophony. Admiral Wade stood at the heart of Geneva base, watching humanity's moment of triumph unfold. "All these years," he mused, "we thought we needed to catch up to their level of technology. But sometimes the best defense isn't the most advanced. It's the most resilient." The Nilaxian grid was now visibly deteriorating, its once perfect crystalline structure distorted by waves of analog interference. But Dr. Patel, studying the readings from Chile, noticed something unexpected in the decay patterns. "The grid isn't just failing," he reported urgently. "It's about to release all the energy it's absorbed from our transmissions. And when it does..." Before he could finish, the first crystalline node exploded in a brilliant flash of light, sending quantum shockwaves rippling through space. The technological symphony humanity had composed was building to a crescendo, and the final movement promised to be spectacular. The cascade failure of the Nilaxian grid lit up Earth's skies like an aurora of technology gone wild. Each crystalline node that exploded released bursts of quantum energy, creating spectacular displays of light and color. But in Geneva base's command center, Admiral Wade knew the light show was just the beginning. "All stations, brace for electromagnetic pulse," Dr. Harrison warned, her eyes fixed on the energy readings. "The grid's collapse is generating feedback waves stronger than anything we anticipated." Commander Rivera's voice crackled through from Arecibo. "The Nilaxian command ship is trying to stabilize their remaining nodes. They're redirecting all power to their quantum processors." "That's exactly what we want them to do." Dr. Patel interjected from Chile. Their processors can't handle our analog chaos. The more power they feed in, the faster their systems will overload. High Speaker Torin watched in disbelief as his mighty fleet's technology crumbled before what he had dismissed as primitive interference. The quantum processors, the pride of Nilaxian engineering, were being overwhelmed by the very chaos they were designed to eliminate. Full retreat, he ordered, his crystalline features distorted with shock. Disengage all remaining grid nodes and prepare for emergency quantum jump. But Lieutenant Shah, monitoring the situation from Geneva, saw what the Nilaxians didn't. They can't escape, she reported with grim satisfaction. Our analog signals have corrupted their quantum navigation systems. They're trapped in their own technological superiority. The scene in orbit became a spectacular demonstration of humanity's unexpected strength. The Nilaxian ships, their crystalline hulls now vibrating with uncontrolled energy, were caught in a web of their own making. Each attempt to engage their quantum drives only fed more power into the chaotic storm of Earth's unified broadcasts. They never understood. Dr. Harrison mused, watching the final phase of Operation Feedback unfold. Our primitive technology evolved through centuries of trial and error. It's not just broadcasting. It's the accumulated wisdom of countless failures and adaptations. Commander Rivera coordinated the final assault from Arecibo, directing Earth's transmission arrays with surgical precision. Focusing all frequencies on their command ship, she announced, "Let's show them what real technological harmony sounds like." The combined power of Earth's radio telescopes, television stations, and satellite networks converged on the Nilaxian flagship. Its crystalline hull, designed to channel and control quantum energy, instead became a resonance chamber for humanity's analog symphony. Their quantum processors are reaching critical failure, Dr. Puddle reported, his instruments registering unprecedented energy spikes. The chaos it's beautiful, in its way. Their perfect system is being transformed by our imperfection. Admiral Wade watched as the Nilaxian command ship's hull began to fracture, lines of light spreading across its surface like lightning in crystal. Sometimes, he said softly, the best way to defeat an advanced enemy is to be proudly primitive. The final collapse came not with a bang, but with a cascade of light that rippled through space itself. The Nilaxian fleet, their technology rendered useless by the very primitiveness they had scorned, had no choice but to surrender. In the aftermath, as Earth's militaries secured the disabled alien vessels, Dr. Harrison made a discovery that would change humanity's future. Their quantum technology, she explained to Wade, when exposed to our analog chaos, it didn't just fail, it evolved. We've created something entirely new, a hybrid system that combines quantum precision with analog resilience. High Speaker Torin, now a prisoner of the very civilization he had attempted to subjugate, finally understood. "We sought to perfect the universe," he admitted, "but you showed us that imperfection has its own kind of perfection." As humanity celebrated its victory, the stars seemed a little closer, a little less threatening. Earth's primitive technology had proven that sometimes the oldest solutions are the best ones. In defeating the Nilaxians, humanity hadn't just defended itself. It had discovered a new path forward, one that embraced both chaos and order, old and new, primitive and advanced. The Harmless human broadcasts had become an unstoppable force, teaching both humanity and its would-be conquerors that true strength lies not in perfection, but in adaptation, resilience, and the wisdom to learn from every step of evolution, no matter how primitive it might seem.